Hello everyone, this is Ramit Sirwal. On my humble YouTube channel, I've covered various videos on my time doing the Bachelor of Laws program as well as one on my time at law college. But alongside my career, I've also had a few hobbies, a satisfying one being playing Scrabble competitively. Recently, I played in the 2023 National Scrabble Championships, where 20 of the best available players come together to fight for the title of National Scrabble Champion. Currently, I'm a bit far from having a decent shot at the title myself, but I got a chance to play all the other top players and improve my skills against them. And so in round 12 of the National Scrabble Championship, a game was played between top professional player Shaila Amalian and myself. Shaila Amalian, also known as Auntie Shaila, is currently the 5th highest rated player in Sri Lanka, only behind the World Youth Champion and the World Youth runner-up. This game was a high-scoring and closely fought game, which is why I wanted to cover it. I hope those of you watching find something interesting in this video. And as all countries outside the US and the Canada, Sri Lanka uses the Collins Dictionary with a 5-point penalty challenge. In this game, I start first. Having faced Auntie Shaila 3 times in the recent past and having lost every single time, I was determined to make a good fight out of this game. And starting with this opening round, the first word that came to my mind was moo, to get rid of the clunky U and dumping the extra E. But as the engine says, the correct move would be to score as many points as possible playing the L and forming oleum on the board. But I overlooked this word which I did not know at the time, and I instead play moo with the U next to the double letter, making it difficult to use the double letter. The next, from my opponent's perspective, she plays Jiao, scoring 31 points. Then I'm faced with this rack, where I do see a bingo, but I'm not sure whether it's spelled correctly. However, I decide it's very much worth the risk and I play regales. I wait anxiously to see if my opponent challenges, but to my satisfaction she does not. Instead, she is sitting on a very good rack and plays her bingo of foliates. As of right now, I am behind on the score, but I spot a very nice play, annex with an E, playing for a healthy 64 points. Then my opponent immediately answers back, however making a crucial mistake as she plays her tiles with the board upside down. And so her tiles come off and the turn goes back to me, and I'm faced with this rack where I think for quite a while, trying to think of a bingo especially with the OUT or the out prefix. But I ponder about it a bit more, and then I see the bingo of vitreous. And the computer also tells me that the 7-letter word within this rack is voiture, or a carriage or a car in French, which also plays in the same spot. Then, with the turn going back to my opponent, she this time plays correctly with the same 2 tiles but in a different spot to score 45 points. Here, with this rack, I miss out on HEP, which I wasn't sure of being a word, and it would have scored a lot of points, 45 points to be exact. So instead of taking the risk, I play the much safer DEP, not scoring as well, but keeping the H, which is a tile that I like. Then next, as you can see, my opponent has drawn well with the blank. You might notice a double option. I'll give you a second to find it. And my opponent does indeed play in that very lane, but she goes with what she sees, which is arrowing. The word I noticed in that lane was vorison, which would have scored 20 more points and maybe would have changed the game for the better. My opponent has created a juicy spot for a letter if it can be played. It is the H to make harrowing, which I immediately spot. But with my rack, I also see the bingo of hipster. I look carefully for a place to play it, but having not found one, I play Pith for 46 points, leaving ERS, which is an extremely good rack or extremely good leave, and hope for a bingo next turn. It should be noted that I challenge my opponent's play of arrowing, which gives my opponent 5 extra points in the Collins system. This will turn out to be crucial, as we say later on. Opponent accepts Pith without any hesitation and instead immediately plays DOD, scoring 18 points and clearing up her rack. Here I am faced with this rack where I do spot a 7-letter word, and the 7-letter word is unrobes. And in fact I think about whether bonds is a valid word, and in fact it is. And not being sure of bonds, I decide to play the word that I am sure of, unrobes, which puts the U in the triple lane, but it's a risk I'm willing to take since the U is not the most bingo friendly tile. And this bingo gives me a healthy lead of 120, and at this point I feel the game is firmly within my grasp. However, after my opponent looks at this word which she has some doubts about, she instead quickly plays her bingo, forming a triple triple. Can you see the triple triple? She plays sautéing for 140, which gives her the lead as well as create fear in my heart. But here at this point I draw good tiles, especially with the Z and a couple of vowels and even the Y. A word that immediately comes to mind is zany, so I look for a place to play zany, which will hopefully score well. But after taking about 3 minutes on this turn, I don't see a place. However, in fact I have missed a very nice spot. Do you see the spot? It in fact creates a hook to one of the words I created before. And this isn't a usual scoring spot, so that is why I missed it. This forms zany with pithy meaning to the point or concise, and this would have scored around 50 points. I also missed out on a word that I did not know about, which is nazify, putting the Y on a double letter and doubling the score of the word. But I settle for what I feel is my only option at the time, keeping the Z and playing my BNY to form bony. Here my opponent plays fast, but I feel like it is a mistake, where she plays entitle, opening up the board despite the game being so close. At this point I take a look at the remaining tiles which are on the screen, and I should have noticed that the tile pool is not very good for forming bingos. However, feeling that only a bingo would put me out of the game, I decide to block the bingo lane by playing fizz. However, my best scoring option would have been za over here, which I did spot, for 6 more points, which would have shifted the game a bit more. But instead playing fizz, then my opponent finds the beautiful insertion play to play off her Q, which is quite difficult to spot. Coin, spelled with QU, and here I'm faced with a difficult option. I look at the remaining tiles to see the best options my opponent could have, but for some reason I irrationally fear the bottom right of the board, where ED forms a nice spot for the H, making it possible to score 30 points. And out of this fear, I try to block it, playing Tory with the R and the I. But in reality, this is quite a bad move, as this allows my opponent, who has quite a bad rack, to play Civic and score quite well, 24 points, and still keeping her lead. At this point, I am down on the clock and feeling the pressure. However, I spot my best move of Gala for 34 points, bringing the game within 3 points of each other. Here my opponent spots the nice insertion play of Jim, putting the game out of reach. I see a play of Act for 15 in the bottom right, but find Nat for 16, which is 1 point more. And with the 6 points from my opponent's rack, this brings the game within 8 points, where the game is really close despite my opponent having a triple triple. So having played this game firsthand, it was a high-scoring game on both sides. But my opponent, using her experience and clever insertion plays such as Coin and Jim, managed to overcome all the high-scoring plays that I threw at her. There's plenty of interesting and competitive games in the Sri Lanka Scrabble scene, so I might be covering a few more of those videos in the future. If you have any suggestions, do let me know in the comments. Thank you and have a good day.